Some of you know, a bit ago I made an Iceberg chart on Pokemon X and Y mysteries, and then just recently I did an explanation series going over it. And then lo and behold, right after that, a giant leak for the series happens, revealing all types of insight info. And today, since X and Y has been a part of that, I'm going to be updating info that was relevant that gives more context to entries that's on the Iceberg chart. Now, let me clarify some things first. First of all, I'm only going to be talking about leaks that are relevant to this, so I'm not going to be talking about much about other games. And I'm not going to be going over anything that was leaked for future titles. I haven't even been going over that, so if you don't want it to be spoiled, then don't worry, I'm only talking about that kind of stuff. Secondly, this leak is still kind of ongoing. It's slowed down, but it's still going, and there's still a lot to come. But I went over as much as there seems to be for X and Y, and I tried to get all the good info I can while filtering out like any misinfo or old news or any wrong assumptions that people have jumped to regarding things. So there's a chance that more stuff might come out, or maybe there's something that's wrong here. Either way, do correct me in the comments. Anyway, I'm going to get started with this, and I'm going to start with the big one being Pokemon C and Zygarde. Now, we already knew that C was something that was an idea that they had on the table to consider doing, but this week has given physical evidence to say yes to it, and that there actually was more in depth that they thought of for this, specifically regarding Zygarde, what we've seen. So, a plan that they had was to give Zygarde 2 complete forms, and they were meant to complement and be able to counter against Yveltal and Cernius respectively, and this is also supported with the way 1,000 arrows and 1,000 waves work. One hits the sky, one hits the ground. And yes, as you probably know by the end though, this of course didn't happen, and this ended up getting changed up a bit, where Zygarde has 2 forms at 10% and 100% form in Sun and Moon with that whole entire weird tacked on side quest. So yes, Zygarde was cock-blocked. We have confirmed that now, and he was meant to get more in a Z, but that didn't happen because they never made the game. Now, before we get into some even possibly bigger stuff, I'm going to go for some tiny quick notes. First of all, there's this neat art of Kuroi Station's train that was leaked. Now, this doesn't really confirm or say anything, but it does show that they did give some good thought to this, and on the Iceberg, it was speculated of this train being used and where it would take you, and we're going to go over more so of where it could possibly taken you. And this week just gives some more context of like, hey, they did have some thought put into this, even if it doesn't say anything. And same goes for the power plant and the scrapped alien plot that I talked about at the end of it, with this space energy concept art that was leaked. The power plant has appeared in the leaks, not new info, but just overall models of it. And I feel like overall, this art, though, however, supports the theory that yes, the power plant was meant to be more important, as everybody believes, and that maybe even possibly the whole entire space thing was an idea regarding this. Now then, moreover, we're going to be talking about AZ because he appeared in a lot in the Iceberg because of how weird and undercooked he is. And this week has shown that originally he was meant to be the main antagonist, the leader of Team Flare, before it was haphazardly given to Lysander. And yeah, like, I feel like just that info alone gives a lot more context and like realization of like, oh, that's why he's just like randomly in the story and doesn't do much. As I said in the Iceberg chart, we don't really hear much about his backstory, and there's that really weird, unique boss battle at the very end of the game that's unlike any other battle in the whole entire franchise, and I feel like this gives more insight to it because they originally wanted him to be way bigger as the main antagonist, but that for whatever reason was dropped, no idea why. And they didn't want to get rid of him entirely, though, and this is what's left over of it. It makes a lot more sense, especially if that battle. This was probably the battle you were supposed to have with him, but everything replaced that, but they didn't want to get rid of it, so they're like, throw it in at the very end, post-credits, and it's just this weird thing that they stuck on, like, last minute as a long due left over for that. And I feel like this also gives more insight and ideas regarding the Eternal Flower Floet, his Floet, because people have believed that since this was originally a cut event, that originally you probably could have just gotten this in the main story itself because of AC after you defeated him, and thinking that maybe, like, after you beat him, he, like, realizes his wrongs, and the Floet comes back and supports him, like, in the final game, or Floet rejects him entirely because of his evil doings, but it still appears before you anyways to accept you as its new owner, or maybe it's somewhere in between, maybe it's column A, column B. So yeah, I feel like Eternal Floet was definitely supposed to have a larger role in the main game as well as AC. And now, something that's more speculative for me is regarding the monochrome Pokemon. As I said in the original videos, this is a palette glitch that happened when the game first came out. People thought it was a new variant like shinies, yada yada. And now, something came out in this week that's really interesting regarding Pokemon appearances, saying that originally all Pokemon were meant to have a bunch of different color and size and shape variations and such. Each individual species was meant to look different amongst each other, you know, like in real life. And that's really neat. That's definitely a giant workload. I get why they cut that. But originally they wanted Pokemon to be unique and also connect this to real-world regions like Pavilion, where every Pokemon would be a color that's different based on where you are in real life, and it would make Dex completion more exciting, blah blah blah, as they say, quote-unquote. And they originally had this for every Pokemon, but then the leaks show that they scaled this back, and they tried it with Noibat, and there's different colorizations, as you can see here, until they dropped it entirely and just had Pavilion be the only one that's like this. And now this is me just purely spitballing with no real evidence or big experience to it, but I want to think just maybe the monochrome Pokemon glitch could be a leftover from this, because it's a palette glitch, but we never knew or found out or anything. Nobody really looked into it, why this happened in the first place. And I'm thinking since the Pokemon were all meant to be different colors before, maybe this is why the palette glitched out in the first place and looks like this as a baseline. I mean, just maybe. And another thing I would like to say is regarding the original Shiny Go-Goat is that this art has showed different colors for other Pokemon. Maybe not so much for the variations things, just different base colors here maybe trying out, and it could not be connected, but I'm thinking that like maybe Go-Goat was just like the one that held on to the longest regarding these, and it just made into pre-release content, assuming that this wasn't also just a coloring glitch. Alright. In the original, I talked about how the final internal dex has two missing Pokemon. One is a mid-evolution for Burlug and Avalugg, and the other was at the bottom, possibly a mythical Pokemon piece of its placement. This appeared again in the leaks. Now, we haven't seen this pre-evolution for Avalugg and Bergmite yet, well, middle one, and we haven't seen the other one. However, we now know what it possibly could have been name-wise and type-wise, because if it's meant to be mythical, this leak has given info on a scrapped mythical from X and Y that was electric steel type, and it was going to be called Tetuo, or is it Tetu? Let me know, because I think it translates into Steel Beam or Steel Tower or Strong Tower, something like that. And it's possible that this could have been the mythical Pokemon that made it late enough to be cut and still left over in the internal decks. we can't see it. Let me clarify, the image that you're seeing on here is not it. It most likely isn't it, at least. This is from a beta black and white intro. This is possibly a beta Fictini, or most likely a beta Emolga because of the cheeks and other features, Streaming Pikachu clone and the way it's flying. We have seen other beta Emolgos and beta Fictini, so this might be another one, or it could have been original Pokemon. Who knows, but this is black and white, not X and Y. But for whatever reason, some people are thinking that this could have been Tetsuo or something like that. Anyway, now for something huge. In the Iceberg chart, in another video, I talked about how people were believing that Kalos and Unova could have been connected, and that you could have taken a train to Unova and possibly other regions. Now, the leak has shown nothing regarding this. If anything, it's deconfirmed it, because we got something else instead, being South Kalos. Originally, there was going to be a whole entire other chunk of the region that was separate, and in a whole new big area that was Southern Kalos, and since it's not directly connected like on the map with lines as you see here, it's believed that you would have to travel here by other means. And unfortunately, it was all cut, as we know of Gen 6, very undercooked. And just maybe the Kuroe Station train is what could have taken you here. I mean, you could still dream that there's other regions kept in mind because of how much X and Y is built off of Unova, but that's just to be expected. And speaking of, Zygarde in Gen 5, nothing has come upon this, so what that whole entire leak was about. But, we have gotten a full beta Unova dex, and, I mean, Superior looks a little bit more Cobra-like, and there is cut lines in Unova that maybe explains what was going on with the leaker having one more than the final dex, and saying that there was a green Cobra-like Pokemon. And all of the info shows that Zygarde was mainly just for X and Y, but again, who knows, like, we've gotten a lot of info, but of course we haven't gotten every bit of insider info from this. And to end this off, I'd like to know how, X and Y, despite starting in 2010, when Black and White came out, there's a lot of mixed and martial development, like it was being built off of Black and White very heavily, but at the same time, Black and White was meant to last for 4 years, or at the very least, they were going to give out mythicals for 4 years, one at a time. And yeah, that's just kind of a shame, because it would have let things develop and cooked more and could have avoided X and Y's general rush development. Now, I don't know if they would have still been giving out mythicals for Black and White while X and Y was out, considering the development timeline, but I don't know, who knows. It's just kind of a shame, because I feel like that is how the games just should be for generations. They should just last for at least like 4 years and let them fully develop and be complete, and not be completely rushed and end up like X and Y, but oh well. And yeah, I don't know, it's just kind of a sad tech, because this has really shown just how much has been cut from the games, but at least now we know for sure. And with that, I'll see you next time, and do give more info in the comments if you have any. Bye bye.